The story of Atlantis begins in the philosophical halls of 4th century Athens. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the philosopher Plato was the first to commit the name to the historical record. He claimed the account had been preserved for generations, passed down from Egyptian priests to the Greek lawmaker Solon. This presents a core historical mystery: how a society capable of such vast engineering could vanish so completely that not a single coordinate remains. The city was an engineering marvel, structured in concentric rings, 3 of water and 2 of land, connected by tunnels and bridges large enough for warships to pass through. At the heart of the empire sat a central island, crowned by a grand temple dedicated to the sea god Poseidon. The temple's exterior was covered in silver, while the interior walls were lined with orichalcum, a legendary metal that flashed with a red light, reflecting the divine power of the sea. This structural precision and divine blessing served as the foundation for centuries of Atlantean prosperity. The island's topography provided natural security. High mountains shielded the fertile plains from cold north winds, allowing for 2 harvests a year. These mountains also provided the timber necessary to build and maintain a massive navy. For centuries, the 10 kings of Atlantis governed this abundance with virtue and wisdom. This influence stretched from the Pillars of Hercules to the shores of Egypt and Italy, projecting power across the known world. While the physical architecture was flawless, the empire's survival depended entirely on the continued virtue of its ruling lineage. As their divine lineage became diluted by mortal nature, their cultural focus shifted. Their hearts turned towards conquest. Centuries of prosperity eventually bred a sense of pride and entitlement that poisoned the society's core values. Over time, Atlantis transformed into a highly aggressive, predatory military force, enslaving other nations to satisfy an unchecked hubris. This expansion was finally repelled by the disciplined armies of ancient Athens, the only power capable of standing against them. Atlantis was eventually destroyed by its own internal rot. It was a civilization enslaved by its own pride. The end arrived with terrifying speed. In a single day and night, the empire was erased. The earth buckled and the skies opened in a torrential deluge, overwhelming the city's defenses. In a sudden, violent upheaval of churning fire and rushing water, the magnificent central island was completely swallowed by the angry sea. A civilization that had projected power from the Atlantic to the shores of Italy was brought down to the depths in a single moment. By morning, the empire had been replaced by a silent, impassable shoal of mud. The ancient world left no coordinates for the site, leaving only the echo of a lost paradise that has haunted the human imagination for millennia. This leaves the final question: was this a historical account of a lost world, or a philosopher's warning about the inevitable decay of empires? While the physical city is gone, the story remains as a timeless anatomy of hubris, a warning for every civilization that follows.
For over 2,000 years, scholars categorized Atlantis as a specific type of moral fiction. It was widely accepted as a fable, carefully constructed by the Greek philosopher Plato to warn his students about the dangers of hubris. The entire foundation of the story rested on these specific manuscripts. Scholars treated the text as a philosophical puzzle rather than a navigational guide, focusing on Greek syntax and moral lessons instead of chartering search vessels. That academic consensus held tight until the late 19th century, when an American congressman and scholar named Ignatius Donnelly proposed a different theory. He argued that Atlantis was the mother civilization, the literal source of all human progress. To support this, Donnelly looked at the architectural similarities between the pyramids of Egypt and the monuments of Central America. He claimed these structures across the Atlantic shared a design far too precise to be a coincidence. By treating these widespread monuments as surviving fragments of a single, sunken culture, Donnelly dragged Atlantis out of the library and into the field of physical historical investigation. Historians had a compelling reason to take this hunt seriously. For centuries, the ancient city of Troy was also dismissed as pure literature, until archaeologists started digging up its actual stone foundations in modern-day Turkey. But proving the existence of a sunken continent presents a massive logistical problem. Early 20th century expeditions relied on rudimentary scuba gear, which left divers with very little visibility and an impossibly small search radius compared to the size of the ocean. Today, researchers aren't relying on guesswork. They deploy heavy-duty submersibles, LiDAR arrays, and DNA sequencing to find evidence that has been hidden for millennia. We are no longer debating literature. Modern technology allows us to systematically survey the Earth's surface for physical evidence that matches the ancient story. The search begins in the west, descending into the shallow, turquoise waters off the coast of the Bahamas. Here, expeditions equipped with high-resolution cameras and advanced interfaces can inspect the seabed inch by inch, separating natural rock from potential architecture. What they found in this specific region is a massive, organized anomaly known as the Bimini Road. Lying beneath the sand are massive rectangular stone blocks. They stretch out in a deliberate, pavement-like formation, resembling a submerged ancient highway. Geologists look at these fractures and classify them as a natural sedimentary formation created by stress and erosion. Believers look at the exact same geometry and see the remains of an ancient seawall. While the geometry is compelling, the blocks lack the definitive ancient tool marks needed to confirm the theory. The search for harder evidence must look elsewhere. Moving east toward the Mediterranean, the investigation finds a very different environment: the sheer volcanic cliffs of the island of Santorini. Around 1600 BCE, this region experienced a massive volcanic eruption. In a single geological instant, a thriving coastal settlement collapsed into a boiling caldera. The people who lived here were the Minoans, a highly sophisticated maritime power. Their sudden disappearance left a massive void in the ancient world. Many geologists point to this exact event as the historical kernel of the Atlantis story. The violent collapse of the island triggered massive tsunamis, aligning with Plato's description of a great society swallowed by the sea. The dates might be different from Plato's original timeline, but Santorini provides a proven mechanism. It demonstrates that a dominant empire really can vanish in a matter of hours. A startling modern discovery is located in the harsh, golden-orange sands of the Sahara Desert, thousands of miles from the deep-sea search zones. This is the Richat structure, better known as the Eye of the Sahara. It is a massive geological formation composed of nearly perfect concentric rings. This diagram outlines the scale of those rings. When researchers map the physical geology of the Richat structure, the distances match the exact dimensions Plato documented for the city of Atlantis. Adding to the geometry, modern satellite imagery reveals clear channels cutting directly through these rings. These paths show where massive amounts of prehistoric water once flowed outward from the center. This evidence has led to a fascinating theory. If you account for higher prehistoric sea levels or extreme flooding, this currently stranded, dry formation would have been directly connected to the ocean. It challenges the assumption that we should only be looking underwater. The most spatially accurate match for a lost maritime empire might be hiding in plain sight in the world's driest desert. From deep-sea drones scanning the Caribbean to satellite imagery mapping the Sahara, modern tools have allowed us to test an ancient myth against 3 radically different biomes. Within the scientific community, the consensus remains that Atlantis is a deliberate allegory, written to warn societies about the corrupting nature of absolute power. Yet the Earth continues to yield physical anomalies, massive stone blocks, and perfectly concentric rings that refuse to be easily ignored. These sites, combined with the memory of cities like Troy, keep the search alive for modern explorers. The discovery of these sites, from the volcanic ruins of Santorini to the rings of the Sahara, proves that even the most fantastic legends can leave a physical trail. These remnants justify our effort to find the truth, ensuring the search for what was lost never truly stops.